It looks like a spider. That's all I could think as I knocked on Andy's door for the third time. He'd called me, just over an hour ago, out of the blue, raving. He never normally called this late. I'd struggled to follow what he was saying. Something about spiders and under his skin. It wasn't like him at all. And the way he abruptly hung up when I questioned him, I knew something was off. I waited again, wondering if maybe he'd heard me this time. He had to be in there. I could still hear the muffled echoes of his TV. I'd already tried calling several times. Something was wrong. After a few more minutes of standing there, waiting, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Retrieving the spare key from the plant pot on the front porch, I slid it into the lock. It popped open with an ominous click. Andy had left it there for emergencies, and this definitely felt like one. Slowly opening the door, I shouted his name, hoping for any sign of him. I didn't want him to think I was a stranger breaking in. The lights illuminated the hallway, just as inconspicuous as ever. Other than the sound of the TV further down the hall, there was silence. Gingerly closing the door behind me, my mind began whirring. I made my way deeper into his house, still calling his name. Again, nothing. The sounds of the TV grew louder as I approached the living room, rounding the door to reveal it playing away to itself. I was getting worried now. Where the hell was Andy? Stepping back out into the hallway, I decided to check the other rooms. Heading towards the kitchen, my jaw dropped and the blood drained from my face. There he was. He was lying there on the kitchen floor, unmoving, his skin a mottled grey. Rushing over to him, I dropped to my knees. What had happened? Reaching out, I rolled him onto his back, throwing my hand to my mouth. I tried my best to stifle my scream. Blood. So much blood. He was lying in a pool of it, slick and crimson. It looked like he'd clawed himself open. Tiny cuts covered one of his arms. They were slowly leaking, and a large patch of skin was missing from his shoulder, revealing the raw flesh beneath, like he'd tried to dig something out. The vast majority, however, seemed to have spilled from his open mouth. His jaw was hanging there, dangling at an angle I'd never thought possible. It looked as though it had been pushed out, forced away from the rest of his face, leaving nothing but a gaping hole. My stomach churned and I had to turn away. Wrestling with the bile clawing up my throat, I stared at the ground beside him, trying to force his face from my mind. Slipping my phone from my pocket, I dialed the emergency services. Trying my best to fight back tears, I explained to the operator what had happened, how I'd found Andy. I couldn't bear to look at him. All I could do was stare at the floor. Through my blurred vision, though, I saw something. I could hear the operator trying to reassure me, telling me they'd have someone there as soon as they could. But her voice seemed to fade, merging into the silence in the background before cutting out. Without thinking, I'd hung up the call, my thumb seemingly moving on its own. I didn't even realize, transfixed by what I'd seen on the ground. Small, almost pock-like dots, a patterned series of them. They seemed to start from the pool of blood, tentatively spreading further and further away from it. They were about the size of a small coin, crimson and perfectly round. They followed, one after the other, almost in sync, leading further into the kitchen. Following them with my eyes, I could see them heading off towards the back door. New thoughts whirled around as I got up, following their progress. What were they? Drops from Andy's arm? No, they were too uniform for that. Maybe droplets that flew as he fell? No, not with the distance they seemed to cover. They seemed to march steadily towards the back door before taking a sharp left turn and climbing up the cabinets. Unfazed by the change in elevation, they continued straight up before disappearing out of the open back window. What the hell was this? They seemed more like tracks. I shuddered as I tried to imagine what could have made them. Could it have done that to Andy? Whatever it was in the garden now. Or at least it had gone that way. Resting my hand on the handle, I chastised myself. Did I really want to go out there? Andy was dead, and the police were on their way. I could just wait for them to get here. Let them handle it. It was their job after all. But I needed to know what had happened to my friend. I needed to be sure. He would have done the same for me. He deserved more than this. Against my better judgment, I found myself opening the back door. Stepping out onto the slabs of the patio, sure enough, the prints continued out here too. They led deeper into the garden, heading towards the back. Slowly, I followed them, my breath shaking all the while. My head was on a swivel, looking for any sign of movement, anything hiding in the dark. Andy's garden backed out onto a patch of wasteland. It was overgrown and disused, but it was home to all sorts of things. He often had problems with foxes and badgers trying to get into his bins at night. Could he have tried to bring one inside, perhaps? No. Those tracks didn't look like any kind of animal I'd seen before. The tracks came to a stop at the end of the garden, the slatted fence separating me from the wasteland only inches away. Before me was Andy's shed. Although it wasn't new, it was still in good condition. That's what made the hole at the bottom of the door stand out. It reached halfway up my shin, jagged shards of wood poking at odd angles around it, as though it had been freshly torn away. The tracks continued inside it, vanishing into the gloom. Whatever it was in there. Reaching out a shaking hand, I pulled the handle slowly, ready to jump out of the way if anything charged out at me. It stuck at first, resisting me, before slowly pulling away with an odd tearing noise. Stale, musty air filled my nostrils as my eyes strained against the gloom of the shed. I couldn't make out anything much in the darkness, but the trailing movement from the back of the door caught my eye. Gossamer fibres flowing in the breeze, frayed from thicker strands, stuck fast to the back of the door in heavy clumps. It looked like webbing, or at least that's the only thing I can liken it to. I'd never seen anything like it. At its thickest, it looked wider than my wrist. Thicker than any spiderweb I've ever seen anyway. Grabbing my phone from my pocket, I flicked the torch on. As the pale cone of light banished a little of the gloom, I stifled a whimper. There were so many of them. The webs. They coated the inside, the thick strands intertwining, covering almost every inch of free space. Something inside of me screamed, begging me to run. Images of giant hairy legs skittering across the thick webs filled my mind. But I couldn't look away. I could have sworn there was something there, near the back. Something stuck in the webbing, unmoving. Resisting the urge to run, I forced myself over the threshold, pushing away one of the sticky thick strands. As soon as it made contact with my skin, fire erupted. Searing pain working its way down my fingers, climbing further up my hand. I tried wiping it off with my sleeve, the burning slowly subsiding, but leaving an unpleasant tingle in its wake. Turning back to the shape again, I could see it slightly better from here. It was large and oval-shaped. From what I could make out in the torchlight, it was a huge clump of webbing, about 3 feet long. It was hanging there, suspended by several strands. As I moved the torchlight over it again, something reflected back at me from near its base. I tried to focus my eyes, lifting the torch high above my head for a better angle. Icy fingers clawed their way along my neck as I realized what it was. An eye. Protruding from the bottom of the massive webbing, it shone wildly in the light. As I stared, I could make out the face that it belonged to. It was canine and orange, probably a fox, although I couldn't see enough to be sure. It was twisted into a rictus of pain, its cold, terrified eyes staring at me as it hung there, unmoving, in its cocoon of unnatural webbing. What kind of spider could do this to a fox? How big was this thing? The cocoon jerked, swinging side to side as though something had knocked it, catching me off guard. I fumbled with my phone, my fingers refusing to work properly. The loud clatter as it fell to the ground echoed around the shed, its light now illuminating the ceiling. My heart raced as I watched the fox swinging in the air. There was something in here with it. With me. I needed to go. I needed to get out. Now. Reaching down to grab my phone, my hand came to a premature stop as I saw large, spindly legs slowly wrapping themselves around the cocoon. They were translucent. An odd, faint light, too dim to make out in the darkness, seemed to pulse through them. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as I watched them creeping over the fox, clambering onto the webbing before it, the webs closer to me. Instinctively, I slowly pulled my hand back. As though sensing my retreat, the rest of it burst from behind the fox, and that scream I'd been fighting so hard to hold back tore out of my throat. I scrambled to my feet, kicking my phone further into the shed in the process. That was no spider. It was huge. I turned and ran, my feet slamming hard against the slabs. From behind, I could hear the almost metallic tapping of its skittering legs against the stones. They echoed around the empty garden. A soft whizzing noise zipped past my right ear as a strand of thick webbing missed me by inches. I pushed harder, my lungs burning, my mind racing. I needed to get inside, get something between me and that scuttling monstrosity. Another strand sailed past me, closer this time. That thing was fast. I could hear it gaining on me. The back door was just up ahead, still open, just like I'd left it. All I had to do was reach it. Just a few more feet. Summoning all of my strength, I pushed my legs as hard as they would go. I'd almost reached the threshold, was almost to safety, when I felt something land on my back. It yanked, hard, nearly knocking me off my feet. Turning, a thick strand of web had fastened itself between my shoulder blades. Another hard yank caused me to stumble back, my coat slipping down my arms. That thing was so strong, I could barely fight it. Images of the cocooned fox filled my mind, its glassy eyes staring at me as I imagined what would happen if that thing caught me. Ripping my arms free of the coat, I threw myself over the threshold and turned, slamming the back door as hard as I could. Frantically flicking the locks, I pressed myself back up against it and waited. My chest was pounding, my heart threatening to burst at any moment. I was just starting to catch my breath when I saw the window out of the corner of my eye. It was still open. Racing over to it, I was half expecting to see those translucent legs reaching around it as I grabbed the handle. Slamming it shut, I forced the handle till I heard the click of the lock. Through the clear glass, I could see the thing. It was still in the garden, moving in the murk. It looked like it was making its way back towards the shed. When the porch light hit it, my stomach dropped. A freshly cocooned bundle was dragging carelessly behind it. It was my coat, already webbed over. Nausea welled up and I retched hard, watery bile coating my throat as the adrenaline that was coursing through me wore off. My legs felt like jelly, and I slumped down to the kitchen floor. I sat there, shivering, cold sweat resting on my forehead, staring at Andy's body, imagining what that thing must have done to him. I've been sitting here for what feels like hours now, just waiting for that thing to come back. Every noise sets me on edge. I'm just waiting for it to find a way in somehow. My hand still hurts too. That tingling won't go away. It feels like it's roiling under my skin. Sometimes there's a sharp pain, like something clawing at my palm. If I look closely in the light, I can see the skin twitch, almost like something's there. I can hear the sirens in the distance now. I just hope that thing's gone. Hey guys, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really appreciate each and every one of you watching. I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing. If you enjoyed this story, please feel free to check out my other videos for more original horror content. You can also find published versions of my stories on Amazon. I've popped a link in the description. Check it out if you enjoyed my work. Thanks again for listening. Feel free to comment your own terrifying experiences below. Until our next descent into the darkness, remember, it's never just a story.